Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the 2015 film Air. So, for this movie, like most of this film is to be carried by two people mostly, but there is three people in this film. We have, of course, Bauer and Cartwright, who are to be these two men who are to be sleeping in these cryogenic beds. And so we have these characters that are to wake up to check on diagnostics of the environment that they are in. They're going on and, of course, checking that other cryogenic bed characters are to have their uh, beds performing well. And so we go on and have these guys have to do all of these projects in a very limited window of time, and then they are to go back into their beds to sleep for 6 months. We end up finding out while these characters are to be awake and going through their diagnostics and doing their normal routine of checking things, we go on and we find that there seems to be a fire that breaks out that now pushes these characters to now have to figure out where exactly there can be parts for their cryo bed. So, and let me remind you, like, these people have a very limited, like, time frame of seemingly air. So what would probably take like days to do, like these people have seemingly less than 2 hours seemingly to do everything that they have to do because they only have a limited window of air. So we have these characters that have to explore and have to go and figure out things just to get a simple part. And while they go on to explore, they end up finding out that more and more that these characters are, one way or another, had been lied to. And so we also seem to have these characters slowly but surely losing their minds, to where eventually we have Cartwright, who is to start to have his own imaginary friend where it seems that he talks to. And I almost want to get to the point where I want to naturally assume that actually Bauer is Cartwright's imaginary friend the whole time. That's what I would have, like, if I would have written this story, I would have had it to have been that Bauer was actually just Cartwright's imaginary friend this whole entire movie. And like him trying to get this whole like parts together and so on, it was a waste of time. And that Cartwright was just really losing his mind. I think that that would have been a much more interesting story to just eventually unfold here. So, with that said, it doesn't seem that exactly they tell us why these people are in these cryogenic beds. Like, we have to make the assumption that maybe the Earth at some point had gone on to create this horrible weather or horrible atmosphere, and so we're to have to like have Cartwright tell us that it seems there's a possibility, there's a window of time that could decontaminate the earth to then have them be able to make their way back to the earth's surface. kind of like if anybody has seen the video game like Fallout, like this kind of feels like Fallout to me. So, with that said, I'm going to go out of my way to just go into spoilers about this one. It's a pretty basic movie. Uh, we really have these characters that, like, we have Norman, who's Bauer, who's kind of really just trying as much as possible to get under Cartwright's skin. And then Cartwright is to do something to Bauer, and then Bauer is to want to go and kind of double check things before Bauer is to really lose all trust in Cartwright. So, with that said, let's go into that double five. I think it's about that time. Where could you go out of your way to see this movie? Well, before we get into spoilers, this movie is available on certain apps to rent or buy, like a Vudu or something, but I'm going to give you a free option also. So, Vudu, YouTube, couple of bucks here or there. You could probably buy this movie for fairly cheap, probably somewhere also. You can go into a number of apps that is to probably be uh, on a Google store search or a Google search. You can go on to a Google search and search the word letter C movies. So one letter and one word. And you can download that app and basically be able to see everything. Everything for absolutely free, pretty much. It usually has ads, but there, in fact, you can watch almost any new releases and any show that you know. You could probably watch that on there for absolutely free. You can go onto a Google Play Store search and search two apps. You can go into TV Crush. You can download that app, and see a number of things for free. You could also go into a search called Movie Apps, and there, in fact, I believe there might still be an app on that search called Play HD TV. You can download that app and be able to pretty much see dang near anything. But I always team it up with the letter C movies because that seems to be the perfect combination of those two apps being to where you can pretty much be able to see almost everything. Like TV Crush sometimes randomly has certain stuff that just those two other apps have, but it's extremely rare for those things to not have something. So a lot of times it's just maybe like a TV show or something like that because eventually just not everything is covered. Or maybe there's just a brand new show that's on that app that isn't on the other ones. So, with that said, let's go into spoilers about Hair. So, the very beginning of this movie is to have a president press conference, which I think we end up really having it to where every single like video that we're seeing here is just a pre-recorded thing before the world had gone to crap. Because Bauer eventually, when he is to get up, is to take the time to go and watch this baseball game, and Cartwright is telling Bauer that he has seen, like, he has, like, Bauer has watched this baseball game hundreds of times, and, like, why are you still watching this baseball game? So all of this videotape just has to be really just pre-recorded stuff to just help you, like, understand these characters just a little bit more. And so Bauer is to get up and he is to go and get out of his cryo bed, and he is to go on and just kind of play with this baseball and kind of just chuck this baseball around because he really just doesn't care anymore. And so when Cartwright is to get up, we just have Bauer who's smacking this baseball against this guy's cryo bed. And so Cartwright is desperately wanting to get out of this cryo bed. And Bauer's like, no, like, you need time to adjust to get out of the cryo bed, because what happens if you kind of get out of your cryo bed too quickly? Like, it affects your brain, it affects your lungs. It's like, good. Like, you have a good memory then. Good. So we have these characters go on, and they, of course, have a certain number of list of things to go and do and run diagnostics on. So we have it where they're kind of going and doing paper, rock, scissors to eventually uh, check to, or forcibly have someone check the sleeping people, because of course Bauer's character doesn't, like, he doesn't like to go and be like hovering over these sleeping people. So they paper rock scissors for it, and of course Bauer wins this, so he doesn't have to go with the sleepers. So Cartwright goes on and is to check the sleepers while Bauer does all these other diagnostics. So, kind of going through certain ventilation things and just kind of checking on stuff, we end up having these like funny and goofy posters that are kind of placed all over the place. Like these, this one kitten poster that is to say "Hang in there," or a ferret faucet or Farrah Fawcett poster. Of course, the girl that's really notably remembered for being in the Charlie's Angels original show. So we have these characters go, and Cartwright is going and doing these checkups, and he ends up going on to talk to Abby. And so we have Cartwright talking to Abby, and we of course have Bowers like, "Hey man, like, who are you talking to?" And Cartwright is like, "Oh, I'm just talking to, I'm just talking to myself." And Bauer's like, "No, like, you're talking to the corpses. Like, that's so weird. Like, not the corpses, but the, like, you're talking to the sleepers, and that's so weird. That's weird." So we go on, and we eventually have it where both the guys are to seemingly do all their diagnostics, and so Cartwright is to see this study that supposedly in 30 years the earth can be possibly decontaminated, and they should be able to go onto earth and be able to supposedly breathe in uncontaminated air. And so they said like 30 to approximately 150 years. So, like, meaning that like they can go into the next 30 years and then like be able to, I guess, for 150 some odd years, be able to like have like good breathable air upon Earth. So we have Cartwright who's just thinking, well, yeah, like, that's just a number of these kind of shifts away. And Bauer is to have posted on numerous pictures of Cartwright's photos, like, that all these people are actually dead, that Cartwright is to have photos of. And Cartwright is like, "Hey man, that's bad taste." And Bauer's just like, "Hey man, I'm just like, I'm telling you the truth, that all those people that you have a picture of, they're all dead. Because, like, Cartwright, I guess, is to have these pictures just to, like, just as a thing to kind of keep him going. And Bauer posting all these things saying that, of course, Cartwright's friends and family and whatever are all dead. So we eventually have Cartwright, who is to hide this one photo of his lover, his woman. And so we have at one point where Bauer and Cartwright are sitting next to one another, and so Bauer is watching this baseball game that he's seen hundreds and hundreds of times, where he can know exactly what the commentators are saying. And so we have Bauer, who tosses this baseball and pretends to smack it into the air, like, yeah, the crowd goes wild, woo. So we end up having Bauer that is to go and sit next to Cartwright and say, hey, like, I'm going to let you know now that, like, I did have a wife and I did have kids and I took this job. And Cartwright's like, well, like, you shouldn't have, because, like, having or not having neither a wife or kids was, like, a requirement for this job. So that way, like, if you died, then or like obviously like these characters being cryogenically sleeping, like they're not going to have a family to go back to. So we have it where Bauer is to mention that he had a family, and Cartwright is to say, like, well, yeah, like, I get the feeling of you just kind of missing those people. And Bauer is like, well, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids. But Cartwright is to know exactly what Bauer is to be feeling, because Cartwright is to actually have a wife called Abby, that, yeah, it's to technically be his imaginary friend, but also Abby is to legitimately exist because she is actually in one of these cryo beds, and Bauer doesn't even know about it. So what happens here is Cartwright is going and checking on the beds, and all of a sudden Cartwright is to realize, while Bauer is going and jerking off because he is to be a chronic guy that is to go and slap the ham consistently. And so we have Cartwright, who goes on to notice that this cryo bed is to be starting on fire. And so Cartwright is desperately asking Bauer for the fire extinguisher. And so Cartwright is to get the fire extinguisher, but it's far too late. And Bauer is to go on and kind of burn his hand. And so all that Bauer cares about, it's like, well, hey, man, like, now how am I going to go and please myself? And Cartwright is just like, well, just use your other hand. And Bauer's like, well, like, but I'll probably need both my hands. So, like, showing that his wang is, like, it's a big, massive wang. So, so we push on, and so now Cartwright is to have to go and figure out where there could be possible parts. And so they're forced to open up some uh, section that had been sealed off, and that had winded down their time. And so they go to this section of this locker roomed like area to find parts in there because evidently the parts were missing for the one place they were to look. And so we transition our characters to this other section to have Cartwright find these parts in this big box. So Cartwright goes and puts these new parts in, and so they're really just they're kind of back and forthing of who's gonna test this bed. And so Cartwright's like, well, I'll go and I'll test the bed. And Bauer's like, no, man, like, I guess I'll test the bed. Like, I think it's not gonna kill me, right? So Bauer goes into the bed and is to test this bed to go on and find out that he's hearing a leak somewhere. And Cartwright is supposedly going and checking it. So all of a sudden, Bauer is to realize that the air in this thing is getting more and more thinner and thinner to where it gets to the point where the like kind of bag like thing is to go and suck into Bauer and suffocate him. And so Cartwright runs over and is to cut open this thing, and Bauer ends up waking or like regaining consciousness, and he's like, oh my god, I could have died. And Cartwright's like, I'm sorry, man. I had to get I had to figure out where the box cutter is. Because Cartwright was to say that the box cutter wasn't conveniently in this toolbox and that he had to go and scramble for it. So now we have to go on and have them figure out what the heck else to do. And they're now out of air. And so now they have to go up this ladder to go into this one section to pull this lever to get this reserved air, because they run out of air and they're like, man, I don't know what we're breathing right now, but like, let's pull this like reserved air so we can get some more time. So we now have to have them, because like it seems like they're running out of options. And so Bauer is thinking to just go on and kill one of the sleeper people and just kind of jump in their bed. And Cartwright's like, I can't do that. And he goes on and is to put like morphine in one of these injections, but he's like, no, like I think that we can come up with some other kind of solution. And Bauer's like, well, okay, but like we're gonna run out of air again sometime soon. So Cartwright goes and puts on a suit to go out walking because he is going to go on to some other facility that is to be called the ABC facility. And Cartwright is to know that these people are there in this facility because every time these people are to wake up, they end up getting this confirmation that everybody is alive and everything is working and so on and so forth. So Cartwright goes on to get through this one airlock to go outside to see all this kind of dust like forming in front of him. So we also have Cartwright, who also is to find numerous dead bodies while he's to make it to this other ABC place. So one with a gun, one with just bones and so on and so forth. So Cartwright goes to the other airlock, and it seems that Cartwright is kind of knocking on their door. Nobody's coming through to help him out. So Bauer is to decide, well, like, there is another way for you to get in there, but you're not going to like it. Because now Cartwright is to have to go through this, like, ventilation shaft to then be able to get through this kind of little small tunnel and be able to make it into this facility that way. So Cartwright ends up going through this little tunnel thing that he's kind of like scrunching in through, like this little tube of a thing, and so he ends up finding another dead body there, and so Cartwright makes it through into this facility, and he ends up realizing that this facility doesn't have anyone in it. That everyone has to have either been dead or like something had to have happened here. And Cartwright goes on and is to check the outside surface because there's a big massive hole here. And so Cartwright is to see Earth, see this kind of battered Earth. So Cartwright again is to not be able to find any parts in time, and so he tries to race back to of course the airlock to go and have Bauer let him in. And while Cartwright is going out there trying to check to find this equipment, we have Bauer who's watching a videotape. So when Cartwright comes back, desperately pleading for Bauer to let him in, we have Bauer who's to hold a gun up and tell Cartwright, hey, guess what I found? And he ends up finding the box cutter. And he's like, yeah, guess where I found the box cutter at? Right in the toolbox that was right by this cryo bed where I told you where it was, and you conveniently could not find it. So we have Bauer that can no longer trust Cartwright, and that Bauer is also thinking that Cartwright is losing his mind, and like Bauer can no longer trust Cartwright. So Bauer is just going to let Cartwright suffocate right here, because that's what was going to happen to Bauer. So Cartwright goes on and is to go back to that one little tube that is to, of course, be the ventilation shaft to make his way into, make his way back into Bauer and Cartwright's facility. And so he goes in there, he goes back into the place where he was originally, to then all of a sudden have gunfire being a thing that happens. And so now Bauer and Cartwright are just kind of going on and chasing one another through this facility. And we have Bauer see the photo of Cartwright and Abby. And so now Bauer is to make his way to Abby, and Bauer is to threaten Abby's life if Cartwright doesn't show himself right now. So Cartwright goes on and is to inject Bauer with that needle that we saw earlier. And so eventually Bauer is to just kind of give up here and eventually just let Cartwright go on and sleep in the cryo thing and just let Bauer die, even though Bauer is to go on and tell Cartwright how awful it's going to be when they actually legitimately run out of air. So Cartwright goes off to sleep, and so now we, of course, have Abby, who, after a certain number of years, is to get awakened by Cartwright, who is now very much uh, like bearded up and like very old and whatever, much older than he was before, and probably more crazed than he was before. So we have him, of course, having these people awake. I'm assuming to just tell him like, hey, like I'm assuming now that the Earth is to be able to correct itself, and so I'm kind of wondering what the conversation is going to be with Cartwright and whoever was to put this whole thing together, where Cartwright is to tell them like, yeah, like we were told that other people were alive here, but we were lied to. So that we're probably have to assume here that Cartwright and the people in these cryo chambers or cryo beds are to possibly be the only people left on Earth alive. Maybe everybody else suffocated to death, and maybe that's a whole possibility because maybe somebody's uh, tube or beds went horribly awry. Because also we had Cartwright, who's to mention that there was to be some earthquake or seismic event, and that maybe that had killed a number of people that had also been in these facilities, kind of protecting others, and they all died because of some earthquake, possibly. That could be the case. But yeah, so with that said, I think that's all that I have to say about this film. There could have been a little bit more dialogue that I went into, but meh, like I think like this is good enough. 30 some odd minutes. Me just talking about this film. It's a very simple film, man, anyways. And so we really just have this movie. Like it was an interesting film. Like I'll give it that. But like it is probably for a lot of people just like, man, there wasn't like enough going on in this movie. But like I thought it was good enough. It was good to see kind of Norman Reedus do something other than Boondock Saints or The Walking Dead. It would be kind of cool to eventually see Norman Reedus do a lot more. Like I also had seen him in the Blade 2 movie. So yeah, it's kind of nice to eventually see Norman Reedus doing something other than uh, really just The Walking Dead. Really, I know he's in the one video game, the Dead Stranding or Death Stranding or Death Stranded, whatever the one weird uh, kind of video game where he's kind of taking all the equipment and chucking it onto his back. And I thought that that game was like so weird. I saw a bulk of the story because I know Jacksepticeye was going and uh, doing a whole gameplay thing about that. And I watched it and I would just watch this guy go through and just like carry all this equipment all on his back. And I'm like, that seems like an absurd amount of equipment to have this guy just be huffing from one place to the other. And I would just be like, this doesn't make any sense. But it was fun to watch. It was a fun show to watch. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.